Please, won't you help?
These animals need your help. They were once animal stars, actors, but now they can't find work. They're broke, they're hungry, they're lonely.
It's so cold out here.
They need your help.
All we need is a little love.
Your donation of $100 or more will help them out a lot. Please donate to the Out of Work Animal Association today.
Please, won't you help? We're lonely, we're depressed, and we're hungry. It's up to you to save our life.
Thank you. Please donate to the Out of Work Animal Association.
Please, won't you help?
Well, good morning, good Monday. It's Monday morning, July 21st, and 3.5 years ago, I had a stroke on July. Well, we had a leap year, so that doesn't count. It was on the 22nd, and I went into the hospital. I went into the ER the next day because I wanted to make sure I had insurance because I wasn't going to get stuck with a bill. That's my pragmatic thinking. So I went to Robert Gray again to play basketball and take some more trips down memory lanes, and my basketball is getting much better. The first time I wasn't making the baskets. Now what I do is I shoot at one end till I make it. It's usually in one shot now, 1 or 2 shots. Then walk down, dribble down to the other end of the court, shoot that till I make it, and back and forth. I do that for an hour. After I ride the bike and play drums and do my morning Tai Chi and stretching and routines that have changed my life on my path, and I also go talk to my tree in the backyard. My concert tree that's been there my entire life. Anyway, I'm at Robert Gray, and I missed the basket, so the ball rolled towards the fence. It faces the field. It overlooks the lower basketball courts by the shop, if you know what I'm talking about. The shop and the home ec were below the gym. And this court is just in the parking lot that's adjacent to the gym. That's been covered, and it's been like that for quite a long time. It used to be a kickball field, and very faintly, the bases and home plate are still on the cement. But I'm walking over there, and there must have been 60 crows lined up on the fence facing me. I like nature. So I invited them to go over and perch on the lower part of the gym roof, and most of them did. It was great. I had an audience of crows. But I was remembering a tragic event when I was, was I sixth grade? I think I was 5th or 6th. And I was in a minor league baseball. I was on McKee Pontiac was our team. Kent Fairfax was on the team, and Andy Craven. Andy Craven's dad was the coach, and I was a pitcher. And the catcher didn't show up that day. We were rehearsing. Shows you where my mind is at. But, I'm an award-winning TV star. Little screen, but still. So I pitched everybody, batting practice. And it was my turn, so I was just storing up the balls and batting them to the people out in the field. And Andy's dad said, I don't feel good. And we had an assistant coach, his friend, and he said, I'm going to lay down. He just laid down in the dirt behind the backstop, right behind me. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know where I'm going with this. And didn't think too much about it, but then he started breathing heavily and kind of moaning and started turning red. So sent a couple kids to the neighbors' houses to call the ambulance. I don't think 911 wasn't a thing yet. And there were no payphones, no cell phones. It was a Sunday. Nobody was home. Steve Sickler wasn't home. The Flumes weren't home. Denise and Debbie Dawkins weren't home. We tried every house on that street, Canaan. And he kept turning redder and redder and redder, bright orange, and screaming. I mean, horribly screaming. And finally, he turned purple, like he popped on the inside. And I still hear those blood-curdling screams of death in my brain. I wrote a song called "The Pain Before You Die" because he was obviously in excruciating pain. So when people say, "Oh, I just want to have a heart attack and die," it's like, oh man, I've watched that. It's not pretty or fun. So nobody shows up. John Ditmore's dad was a doctor. He came, and by that time, there was nothing you could do. The fire station was about a mile down the road, up steep hills and back wood roads, but that was too far to walk to. And that was amazing. Not fun at all. I had some other crazy things happen during baseball season. I'm the reason that catchers have to wear helmets. I was a fat kid, my mom fed me anything I wanted, things, or as much as I wanted, I should say. So I'm in Pee Wee baseball, which is, you're like 7. And it was pitcher, it wasn't a T-ball. So I'm a fat kid, and I used to play baseball with my neighbor, Dana Bleckinger and Craig Bleckinger and Jay Flume and Toby Flume every night at the fire station park. And I learned to drop myself way back in the batter's box so I could hit it into right field because they put the really bad players in right field. And I dropped back there, and I swung with all my might. I connected, and I took off running. By the time I made it to third, I noticed nobody was doing anything. And the coach said, I said, "Was it foul?" And he said, "No." What had happened was I hit the catcher as hard as I could with an aluminum bat in the back of the head. That was the crack. I thought, damn, I really thought I connected. I felt bad about that. But the next week, all the catchers in Sunset Little League had to wear a helmet. And for good reason. I was still playing. So whoever you were, I'm very sorry about that. And well, at least I have helped change the protective standards of the game of baseball, which is usually non-injurious. I just made up a word. And wow, we used to have some other fun times. Like in 7th grade, I started smoking pot with Steve Sickler. And we got a little bit of weed and went down to this place called the Foundation, which was an old foundation of a house in the woods above the Jewish Community Center, where the footbridge was. Steve Luthi was a tree climber. I mean, these guys are amazing. They're, 13, 14 years old. They've got the leg spikes. They're climbing to the top of these big trees and hanging a rope swing. And people would go down there and party on the weekends and swing on the rope swing over the gully. I mean, it's a big ravine, really, that the footbridge goes over. Oh, the footbridge. Man, my mom, I don't know, my grandfather was a pretty big-time Jewish mobster, and he knew all these guys, and somehow we met the cantor. of the synagogue, Neva Shalom. And my mom would drop me off at Osrael Feifel's house. Ozzy was his name. So I knew an Ozzy before there was an Ozzy. And they're from Boston. And the first time I'd heard an accent that was different than Portland. And his mom would put on records like Peter and the Wolf for us to go to sleep to. After we went to the synagogue for a service on Friday, my mom would drop me there on Friday night so she could party with Bill Beckman, my stepdad. So here's this blonde kid, blue eyes, going to synagogue on Friday. So I went there more than I did the Catholic Church. And I'll tell you something about Catholic churches. I went to St. Thomas More, and my mom would take me up there. But before that, we went to the Ascension Church when I lived at my grandma's house. I was about 4 years old. And I'm sitting in the pew, my little white shirt on and black slacks and my hair all gussied up, as they said. And this guy came out in like a robe, like a weird caftan. It was a priest talking in some weird language. It was Latin. And I thought, okay, well, they handed me a Bible and I drew all over it. I thought, it's a coloring book, huh? And I'm sitting there. Pretty soon, these men, they look like, it's like the mafia. They all come down the rows with basket, I called them the basket on a stick men. And they would put the basket on the stick into the pew and people would put money into it. That's how the Catholics do it. They don't do it for fun. They want to make money. I mean, Jesus, his whole thing was about money, indirectly. But they put this basket in front of my face, and I just found out what a dollar bill was. So I took all the dollars out, and I thought, wow, I like this. Church is pretty cool, man. They pay you. Then I saw these things that were pieces of paper later on and realized they're checks. And the coins, there were no coins. It was dollars. So I took a whole bunch. I left a few and smiled, and I said thank you profusely about half a dozen times, and turned around and waited for them to leave. They did not leave. And that coughing thing that people do when they don't want to say, hey. I respond to hey, not a cough. And they look at my mom, and then they point their head down to my hand, which is full of money, more than I could put in my pocket. And he nods to put it back in the basket. My mom says, you got to put it back. I go, why? I put it back, and I thought, that's great. They offered me money, and then they want me to put it back. I don't like church. So when I went to Jesuit high school, I told them that story, and I never had to go to Mass or any kind of service or anything like that. You know what I did when I went to Jesuit? Because I got a football scholarship, and I had to work in the field to pay the rest of it off at $2.22 an hour, digging ditches and laying irrigation pipes. There was a working farm out there at Jesuit, all the way over to that road that's before Jesuit, and all the way to Valley Plaza. And my group of people totally changed the front. We took all these weeds and everything. But I would go to the music room, and I played in the band. I didn't know how to read music and refused to learn how to read music. And so I did it all by ear. And I would listen to Kiss Alive, which had come out loud as hell. And the music room was away from the classrooms. But that was my church upbringing. The Jewish people didn't ask for money. I thought, I like this, and they sing better because Ozzy's dad, I learned how to sing by listening to that guy when I was 5 and 6 years old. And the first day going to school at Robert Gray, my mom dropped me off at Ozzy's house, which was on right across from the Neva Salam synagogue, because the people, they didn't have a, what do they call that? A place for the priests and all that to live. They had houses on the parking lot, and the staff of the church lived there, or of the synagogue. So we was on there. We walked the trail behind Sandy Wilson's house and to the footbridge. It was going to be all scary, but we went and made it unscathed. And the footbridge, man, it looked like some prison camp bridge that went over the ravine that made it to Robert Gray. But that footbridge had a lot of fun going on in there when I was about 7th grade. I remember making out with Kathy Myers in 8th grade down in those woods, and I was really shy around women. I got cured of that by a friend of mine's stepmother. She was gorgeous. And I was 17, and she was 34 and lonely, and her husband was a jerk. And her husband was such a jerk when my friend, who was a couple years older, came home from the Air Force as a big bodybuilder. I went to their house, and he had him, his dad had him on the ground, and he was beating him up really bad and telling him, "I love you, son. This is for your own good." And he wouldn't fight back. But I had girlfriends like that. Pretty soon I had a few people in the neighborhood that I would mow their lawn. I loved that summer. Then my hair burnt off. And my social life went to shit. Yep, I was down in the same basement practicing with my band Snapper and with Joe Fazzolari, and we had stolen a sign that was for Snapper lawnmowers, because I thought, wow, that sign's a perfect sign for a backdrop. So we went and stole it one night from this lawnmower place and used it, and people go, "That's a Snapper sign. That's the name of our band." But we were doing flash spots like Kiss. I had when I bought it, Callan's magic shop downtown that used gunpowder and magnesium powder. And it was like a tuna can, painted black, mounted on a piece of wood. You put a strand of wire between a little plug that was built into the thing. And then when you plugged it in, the wire would burn and the gunpowder would burn up. Well, Mike DeBellis thought it would be funny to watch me jump, and I could hear him all giggling. I was loading this in the basement. My mom told me, "Don't do those in the house." But did I listen? Nope. And so I hear giggling, and all of a sudden I see fire coming straight at my face. It burned my eyebrows off. They grew back, as you can see, quite healthily. Healthily? I'm making up words left and right here. And burnt all the skin off my hands, and blew my fingernails off, and burnt my eyelashes and eyebrows. And I'm lucky it didn't burn my eyes. So I came up the stairs. My mom said, I told you. I said, "Just don't go there." I looked in the mirror. My face is black, totally black, like, a cartoon, like Wile E. Coyote. And that's when I had to go to Wilson High School because I couldn't play football. I couldn't continue working on the grounds. So I was stuck going to Wilson with the people. There were quite a few people at Robert Gray that I just didn't see eye to eye with. Malcolm Smith was one of them. God, his mom, when she found out I was going to Jesuit, she said, "That'll be good for you. You don't have a father. Your mom is a horrible mother." And no, she wasn't. She was just a bitch, that's all. She looked just like the old maid on the old maid's card deck. And there was a free concert when we were all in 7th grade. There was a band called Ball and Jack. And they were playing for free at the Paramount if you went and got the tickets, like at a record store or something. And so I did. And a bunch of us was going. And my mom was going to drive us down to the Paramount. We go to pick Malky Smith up at his house. And she comes out and Bill Hoffman will still tell you, she read my mom the riot act, the 3rd degree. And my mom said, "They'll be fine." My mom had been taking me and Bill to concerts. I mean, dropping us off there when I was 11, like I told you in the last episode of this. And by that time, I had seen Savoy Brown and Status Quo and a bunch of groups. I remember the Portland Paramounts, or Paramount Northwest is what it's called, because it was a movie house before that. And I saw the concert for Bangladesh there, and I also saw like Disney movies. They had movies at the center. And we've been going there since age 11 with a black eye. You should check the other story out. And so she thought it was fine, no problem. But Malcolm Smith, his mom would just, they were Mormon, maybe that had something to do with it. They had more food in their pantry than we ever had in our house. But I will say something about Malcolm Smith's brother had the album Isle of Wight by Jimi Hendrix, and the song Freedom really locked into my brain. It's still one of my favorites. And so we went to the concert. It was fun. And yeah, people smoked marijuana there. Oh my God. Later on, I would get into LSD at Jesuit High School through Brian Spooner. Brian Spooner's brother, Mark, played guitar in the band The Tubes. And he came to school one day. At Jesuit, the whole homeroom class would travel together to all the classes. Like the same group of people would go to algebra and French and English and theology or religion or typing, all travel together the same thing. Brian, we all went to the bathroom, and Brian had this little container, and he gave each of us a hit of Owsley LSD from San Francisco. And he said, cut it in half with this razor blade. So we all cut it in half and popped it all at the same time, first thing in the morning before roll call in homeroom. And so about an hour later, we all started giggling. And then it's time for PE with Father Vogel, who was friends with the Happy Hooker, and he used to tell us stories about that all the time. He was also the freshman football coach. He'd be out there smoking in PE or smoking at the football practices. It was a different vibe going to Jesuit. The priests were like regular people. And we started seeing tracers. We played softball in PE, and I would see tracers. We all started laughing when they pitched. We went through the whole first day, all high in acid. We went to algebra, and Father Power's face was really actually scarred up and had red. It looked really wild when you're high on acid. And we just laughed. You come in and go, "Okay, class, what is a set?" He sounded like Harry Vanderspiegel on Resident Alien 50 years before the show. And after that, I would go after school. I decided I would I rode the bus to school, and the bus would drop me off at Wilson High School. I'd walk through there and saw some people, and I thought, I'm going to walk up to Robert Gray. And Mrs. Fisher, the principal, had this painting made with Dayglow paint in her office, and I thought that would be really cool to look at. I figured she'd be gone by this time, but no. She was there, invited me into her office for a little chat right across her desk, and I kept staring at the painting. I go, "I love that painting." She goes, "You look really happy." And I really was, because I was ditching all of the bullshit that you've been told your whole life and changing my perception. Rubbed up my body with that awesome spandex, and I'd had a real lusty crush on her forever. I mean, she was just gorgeous. She smelled great. Then she started kissing me. That seems to happen to me a lot. I never initiate anything, but some of the best fun times are ones that happen that way. And she said, "Well, would you like to go play tennis?" And I said, "I have to go to work. I have to wash pots at the town club with Tom Cass. But tomorrow, yeah." She said, "Okay." And she knew my mom didn't work or wasn't going to be home. She was at work. So she said, "I'll be over at 9. I was up at 6. And took a shower and was clean and ready to do whatever. And we did whatever for like 4 or 5 hours. And that went on for the entire summer.